Well, you don't have to be a Nobel laureate to draw a connection between the strong uptake of solar panels in Australia and the large amounts of sunshine we get. They've been one of the most popular green technologies taken up here, especially because of government subsidies and rebates. But with a carbon tax now on the way, the government's keen to see people's behaviour more influenced by a market-based system rather than handouts and similar incentives. Mike Sexton takes a look at the future viability of the renewable energy market.
They are becoming as common as rainwater tanks and roller doors. In mostly middle-class suburban Australia, solar panels are everywhere.
We are starting to notice the bills coming down, which is really great when you get them in the post. Oh, that's a better colour.
Michelle Rudd runs a small business from her Adelaide home, and it was a concern for the environment that motivated her to go solar.
I do try and do what I can environmentally with recycling, saving water, that sort of thing. So that was a big thing in our decision.
A few doors down, Patrick Rocker decided to harness the sun for purely economic reasons.
I invested in 24 solar panels with a 4.7 kilowatt system. It cost me about $15,000. And basically I'm just looking at that as paying my power bills 5 years in advance.
The lines of cells.
Solar panels have become more affordable as mass production, particularly in China, coupled with a strong Australian dollar, has brought the prices down.
The module is then laminated in a vacuum and cured by heating.
But they've also been driven by government policies. In addition to a federal subsidy scheme, state governments have offered various feed-in tariffs where surplus energy is bought back from homeowners at a higher than market rate, all of which generated a bonanza for solar installation companies. In the past 2 years, enough panels have been put up to generate more than 1 gigawatt of power. And in green terms, it's the equivalent of taking 100,000 cars off the road. A few weeks ago, the solar industry in Australia was celebrating after achieving what it refers to as grid parity. Now, this means in rough terms, the money you would have spent setting a solar system up on your roof and generating power is the same as what you would have spent buying electricity out of the grid. The industry believes Australia is one of the first countries in the world to achieve this, but says as the grid electricity prices continue to rise, the balance will tip further in solar's favour.
It means that solar can be cheaper than grid power, and so this is, I guess, one of the aims we've been looking forward to for the last 30 years.
However, the incentives have been so successful that governments are winding them back. The federal subsidy is being phased out. South Australia and Victoria have reduced their feed-in tariffs, while they've been abolished for new customers in the ACT, New South Wales and Western Australia.
Business plummeted in our office there and throughout the industry in July, and 1st of August they announced complete closure of their feed-in tariffs, and I think companies that have national exposure with heavy exposure in New South Wales would really suffer.
We've certainly had a roller coaster ride. We've had governments who've supported solar very strongly and then been surprised by the popularity and instantly removed subsidies and so on, which has been very destabilising for the industry.
While solar allows individuals to slash their power bills, it's being blamed for increasing the costs for other users as governments pass the incentives and tariffs on. A recent report commissioned by the Energy Users Association of Australia argues solar has received a disproportionately high percentage of subsidy for the amount of clean energy it can deliver. Not true, according to the solar industry, which says it's being unfairly blamed when the real issue is the costs associated with upgrading ageing grid infrastructure.
A lot of the discussion about the power prices going up has ignored the fact that by far the major price increases are due to a network expenditure, not due to the solar schemes that have been in place.
It will be economically responsible because this will drive investment in clean energy sources, it will drive innovation and it will drive productivity.
With the recent passing of the carbon tax, the question is being debated by those seeking a clean energy future as to what role might government play to continue encouraging the uptake of solar, given the looming mandatory target of 20% renewable energy by 2020.
There's really no market for solar panels outside of government subsidies. If you removed all the subsidies for solar panels, you wouldn't really have much of an industry at all. And that's been fine for a little while. I mean, you can produce some, you can get up to 0.1, 0.2% of your electricity, but if you want to get solar up to 20%, you're going to need some pretty big advances in the technology.
Those arguing to remove solar subsidies have an unlikely ally in American environmental lobbyist Michael Schellenberger, who was recently in Australia for the Adelaide Festival of Ideas.
Hello, everybody.
He points to his own state of California for an example of ham-fisted government intervention. There, a solar panel manufacturer called Solyndra collapsed, taking more than $500 million in federal and state subsidies with it.
Solyndra's bankruptcy is forcing leaders to question whether it's appropriate to use taxpayer money on emerging technologies.
Michael Schellenberger believes government should use levies on pollution to advance generation technology, not subsidise existing methods like at Solyndra.
What we really need to be doing is, instead of subsidising big factories to produce solar panels that will never be able to compete with fossil fuels, we really ought to be subsidising the R&D, the innovation to advance the technologies so that one day they will be able to.
After years of carrots, the carbon tax brings a market-based stick approach to renewable energy. The federal government has made no secret that it wants to see state-based incentives wound up. Whether this system matches the success of the previous schemes in encouraging small-scale solar in a land of endless sunshine remains to be seen.